So mic is hot. Oh, let me put on our intro screen. Sorry, I know y'all want to see us, but better to go to the waiting screen. You know. Hold up. There it is.
I'm from Black America, it's just another year. You knew the disrespect by your elected puppeteers, but let me show you how to persevere.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay DaCosta.
It's your girl Katniss.
And together we are the
Nitty
Gritty. We are back with another show. Just to let you guys know, we're still looking for a sponsor to kick off our year. Shout out to Plug-in Customs who held us down basically like the last 5 months of the year last year. So we definitely appreciate their contribution. Mamie, I see you in the building. Let me drop a bomb for you, hun. I see you. Stage me, Mamie. You can always be feel free to be a sponsor if you would like. I see Herman's in the building representing Full Circle. If y'all haven't checked out Full Circle, feel free to throw your information down in the chat, you guys, so people know where to find you guys. I'm going to put a bass drop for Full Circle, though, in the building. Clarksville, Tennessee in the house. And my favorite realtor is in the building. I see Brent Rooker. Feel free to show your information as well if you would like. One of our favorite realtors here in the DMV area. Brent Rooker actually helped us with some things earlier last year. So shout out to Brent being in the chat. Happy to have you, sir. We're back for another episode of the Nitty Gritty Show. Unfortunately, we have to talk about these ever circulating hashtags that have to attach themselves to lives that are taken from us way too soon. So we're going to be talking about Tyree Nichols and his case, but more so the overarching theme of police brutality in America. And what can we honestly do to stop it, to slow it down, to change it? We're going to look at some numbers because a lot of people from the blue life community would say that, oh, well, officers have to be on guard because people are so inherently evil. And you never know what you may come across. Someone may have a gun. They may try to shoot at you. And I get that prospect is real. However, when you look at hard numbers, according to the census and other things we pulled from, you'll see that maybe that's a bunch of baloney. Mm-hmm. So we want to attack all of that. There is a video out there showing this attack on this young man. I did not watch it. I read about it. I understood everything that happened. I didn't feel the need to watch that kind of brutality. I didn't want to look at it. Only thing it does is upset my spirit. And just didn't want to deal with that again. I've seen enough. We have all seen enough. I didn't want to see that. But we're going to talk about it though, because we're not going to ignore the elephant in the room. So, before we get there though, let's talk some current news. This will semi-lighten things up, but we're going to get to it. We were talking about this earlier, Katrina and I. Congress is voting to ban TikTok nationwide. A lot of it has to do with the parent company, which is a Chinese-based, Chinese-owned company. And there's been multiple reports showing how TikTok is used in China, where kids are like building robots, finding new ways to compute math and stuff like that, versus our TikTok, which, let's just be honest, a lot of booty shaking, a lot of hijinks and stuff like that going on.
But I would say TikTok is a great platform if you are an aspiring comedian or actor or actress.
Oh yeah, it has good uses. Yeah. The editing features, the way you can push art and stuff like that is awesome. But we also know those that degrade anything they come in touch with, right? Like Facebook at its inception, right? Facebook, you had to have a college edu email address.
Edu, yeah.
So that was nice because I knew that when I first got on Facebook, everybody there was a college student like me. So I was meeting peers and I wasn't have to worry about dealing with underage kids. Because it was a college community, people might post like, hey, there's going to be a party here or a party there. But it was never too wild, right? Because at the same time, it's college. So while it's social, there's this precursor to what could be possibly professional. So people weren't wilding on Facebook.
The evolution of Facebook is interesting.
When they open that thing up, I understand the financials as to why, because the advertising, the way they can drill down a potential group and break down algorithms as to how you can successfully sell and market to a group. I get why they opened it up, but you have to deal with all the other stuff that comes about when you open it up. So it is what it is. The only social media platform I see that has remained sane, and I hope it will always stay this way because it's a professional form, and that's LinkedIn.
I don't know about saying they be arguing on LinkedIn all the time.
I mean,
they be arguing all the time on LinkedIn.
But you run the risk of the wrong person seeing it on LinkedIn, and you may not get that job. So yeah. I feel like for the most part,
most people are censored.
Yeah, I think they think about, they're a little bit more strategic typically when they go about those arguments or saying certain things on LinkedIn.
I barely post on LinkedIn for that very reason.
I mean, I post work stuff on LinkedIn or things associated with my industry, but yeah, that's the extent of my LinkedIn activity. Also, for all the football fans out there watching, somebody give me an update. Herman, I'm probably sure you're keeping up with the game, or Brent, one of you guys. I know the Eagles won today, so shout out to Eagles. Shout out to my brother Nate Altar.
Isn't it going to be a Kelsey versus Kelsey Super Bowl?
Yeah, because the other Kelsey's still with the Eagles, right?
Yes.
Well,
so shout out to Cleveland Heights then.
Well, that's if the Bengals and the Chiefs are playing right now.
I see.
So if the Chiefs win, which it's a good chance the Chiefs are going to win. So Chiefs are up 13-6. Thank you, Herman. Appreciate that, sir. Base drop for you.
Okay.
So yeah, if KC wins, then yeah, it's going to be a Kelsey versus Kelsey Super Bowl. Shout out Cleveland Heights.
So what would the parents do in that? Does one parent have to share one brother, and another parent another brother? That's so cool.
I mean, I would imagine if my brothers had went to the NFL, because for those that don't know, the Twin Towers, right? They're huge. If they had went to the NFL and they were playing on opposite teams, I would just wear a hat that says Eagles and a jersey that says Chiefs, and either way, I'm a winner. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's how I would look at it.
You split. You have one parent put on the Eagles and one parent put on
the Chiefs,
and then halftime, then they switch.
Then you switch? Yeah. I mean, that's the way to work it. I mean, that's dope to have the prospect that they may have two sons playing in the Super biggest, probably one of the largest sporting events known to the United States, at least. I won't say in the world, because really cool. The rest of the world plays real football, which is FIFA. But one of the biggest sporting events in American history and entertainment. Yeah.
And to think I used to walk the halls with those people.
Yeah, and like you really know them. Like that's the funny thing. Like some people be like, "Oh yeah, I know so and so." You and your friends, y'all really know the Kelseys. Like really know them, which is kind of dope. Like if you seen them out and about, they would recognize you. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? Like they really know the Kelsey brothers, so that's kind of dope. So shout out to them. We'll see who heads to the Super Bowl, but we know the Eagles are in it, so shout out to you guys.
He likes that.
Check out Norman. So Norman, y'all, is a Cowboys fan. Shout out to Norman. We got the DMV in the building. Bomb drop for you. Bomb drop is for you, though, Norman. It is not for that tired team that you continue to root for, which is the Cowboys. I just want to make that very clear. The bomb drop was for you as an individual because you cook your butt off. You make some amazing turkey legs and all of that. But we are not giving you a bomb drop for them Cowboys, okay? That's why y'all on the couch with us. Y'all right here with the Commanders. Y'all gonna be watching this. But yo, happy to have you in the building. If you guys are just joining us, we are gonna talk about this Tyree Nichols situation. And actually with that, we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. Okay. So just to get everybody caught up before we get into it, if you don't know what happened with the Tyree Nichols situation, right? Basically, Tyree Nichols, 29-year-old black male, born and raised in Sacramento, California, moved to Memphis back in 2020. Professionally, he was, I had looked that up too. Oh yeah, he was working for FedEx. So professionally, he worked for FedEx. So we're talking about a working man, tax-paying man, right? Was a father of a 4-year-old son. Right? He was pulled over on January, it looks like it was January 10th? No, January 7th. January 7th, he was pulled over, routine traffic stop because they felt like he was alleged reckless driving. When the officers stopped him, right? And there's nothing in the video that shows that they needed to use as much force, but when they stopped him, they pepper sprayed him, they tasered him. Nichols then manages to get away. Because, now think about this, guys. I know a lot of people say, well, if the cops stop you, just cooperate. We've seen multiple situations where black men have their hands held up high. They're cooperative, and they still find their way to getting shot. And yes, I know the people that did this to Mr. Nichols were black men themselves. Which makes this even worse. For all the white folks that will eventually watch this, this is not a race baiting kind of situation. We call out cruelty no matter what color it comes in. Because we will see as we talk throughout the night, there is a culture within police. And it doesn't care if the officer is Hispanic, black, or white. There's this automatic fear-mongering, especially of black men, in this authoritative way of how they police us versus protecting and serving us. So this young man gets beaten for 3 minutes straight. Even as they're pursuing him, pardon my language, I'm just repeating what they said. I don't make the news, I'm just reporting. They say, one of the officers say, I hope they stump his ass. That is their response to a routine traffic stop.
This doesn't make sense.
And a young man or any person, if you're being assaulted, your first reaction humanly is to protect yourself. You're not going to cooperate with somebody stumping you on your head. You're going to wrestle. You're going to resist. And it's not because you're trying to resist authority, because if he truly was resisting, he wouldn't have pulled over when the lights hit him in the first place. He pulled over. That means he wasn't resisting. He was trying to cooperate. But once you're pepper sprayed, once you're dragged out of a car, because you're trying to understand why are you being so aggressive right now, the natural response of any human is going to be self-preservation. And that's going to come in the form of fleeing, running, because you're afraid for your life.
And now 5 men's life have been altered.
Yeah, that means now their families that they were working hard for, their loved ones are going to be without them.
5 black men.
5 black men, because they couldn't control their anger because they live in this hyper environment to be authoritative and abusive to the people they're supposed to protect and serve.
But question, so because I didn't watch the video, so they stopped him for a routine traffic stop, and then he pulls over.
Yep.
And then
how does it
escalate? I'm trying to understand.
Well, I didn't watch the video, but basically, from what I've understood from reading and having conversations with folks, I guess he's kind of questioning the stop.
Okay.
Like the reckless driving. And it's this thing that we see often with officers. When you have a disagreement, they want to try to check you. Yeah. Prime example, dealing with a TSA officer on a business trip coming back home. They didn't like the fact that I had lotion in my bag, right? Because I had my laptop in my bag and I had lotion in the bag. So they needed to pull the lotion out. Now, see the guy, I always put all of my personals, y'all, in a Ziploc bag, right? Because that's how, just in case something spills or whatever, it doesn't get on the clothes inside of my, suitcase, right? So I see him about to go into the bag and I have my toothbrush in there. So I say, hey, excuse me, can you please change your gloves and sanitize said gloves? Because I don't want those gloves you've been using for everybody else's bag near my toothbrush. I take my health serious. I don't want you putting germs onto something that I have to put in my mouth.
Right.
The guy kept an attitude with me. Sir, you move around. I'm like, sir, I'll move around, but you will change your gloves and you will sanitize. Because the job of the TSA is to keep me, the customer, safe. To make sure that guns and things don't get onto a plane that can cause a problem. But you're not to be an overseer of me. Your job is to make sure that we're all protected. Your job is to serve me. You still have to provide me customer service. Mm-hmm. I'm a client. I am the customer, right? I don't adhere to you. You do things to keep everybody in the airport safe. Part of keeping me safe is keeping germs off my toothbrush.
Right.
So I expressed that to him. Officer Mathis, I still remember his name because I reported him to the proper authorities. I hope you see this video one day. And then Officer Vega, very nasty individuals towards me. I then report them to their supervisor right there. Thank you, Officer Haggerty, for being a gentleman and being a professional. Yeah, I remember names really well, right? And they're being, they were disgusting. But because they have a badge, they thought that they were in the right to talk to me this way, to be dismissive of me, right? To treat me cruelly. And they said that they were going to be addressing that situation, but I made sure I filed a complaint because that's my right as a citizen to file the complaint when you talk to me a certain kind of way or if you don't service me with care and respect. I pay to use this airport just like everybody else, and I pay my taxes, which basically pays you, right? So I put all that down. So when bringing it back to this situation with Tyree, that's all that's happening. You question, well, why are you doing this?
Right.
Step out the car. Why do I have to step out the car?
Yeah, okay.
That's a natural response.
I would respond that way
but
too,
so
like,
many
what?
officers, they get high on their horse and they feel like, no, I can control you. I can bully you around. Respect my badge. I carry a gun.
That's an ego.
It is an ego thing, and it needs to be checked. But then they have this thing that I'm going to get into called qualified immunity. And that's why they feel like I don't have to protect and serve. But let me slow it down a bit. Let's talk about protect and serve. Y'all know me, I love definitions. So we can make sure we have a common denominator of understanding as we go into the conversation, right? Because I know there's some people that are going to watch this, they don't agree. And that's fine. You don't have to agree with the things we're going to say on the Nitty Gritty show tonight. But I am going to break down facts and statistics that's going to make you think about why you rationalize the way you do. So let's go to the first thing, protect. Protect, according to Merriam-Webster, keep safe from harm and injury. Keep safe from harm and injury. Preserve or guarantee by means of formal or legal measures, aim to preserve a threatened species or area by legislating against hunting, collecting, or development, right? We start talking about protecting animals in the wild and stuff, but it still is a definition that could be used when describing police when it's time to protect and serve, right? That's what they say. And then if we're looking at the word serve, perform duties or services for another person or an organization. So if your job is to protect and serve in Memphis, who's the organization or who are the peoples you're protecting? The citizens of Memphis. Those that live in the city or the province of where you have power or the ability to protect and serve people. Your job is to perform duties of service for them. You're not serving by someone who decides to pull over when they turn on the lights, and then you're trying to bully them and say, get out here, do this. No, shut up. You don't ask the questions. I ask the questions. And then you pepper spray him?
But then also, how did 4 cops get involved versus 2?
So it is protocol for a lot of officers. Now, if you got 5 cops, that means you either have 5 cars or you have 2 cars where you have 2 individuals inside and then one person, maybe a shift supervisor, moving by himself. That's the only way you get 5 cops in this situation.
Okay. More
More than likely, 5 different cars. What more than likely happens, I didn't watch the video, but just understanding police protocol. Normally what happens when you stop, when one person stops, because there's normally one officer in the vehicle, at least in Prince George County, that's how they move. Then they get a backup vehicle, just in case it gets crazy, right? And normally it's supposed to be a check and balance to make sure that the officers are protecting and serving. But when they're all corrupt or they're all a-holes, you get this situation. But normally what happens is the one comes. But then by him running, they can say, hey, I have a perp on the loose. So now they can call in more squad cars. You get what I'm saying? For this stop.
He ran because he felt...
He ran because he felt his life was in danger. Yeah. He's already been pepper sprayed and beaten for a routine traffic stop. And then we've seen Ahmaud Arbery get chased down by vigilantes. We've seen Mike Brown get killed. We've seen Tamir Rice get killed, right? So after all, Freddie Gray, as a black man in America, who wouldn't be afraid? My heart beats fast when a cop drives by me and I'm not doing anything wrong. I typically move about 5 miles under the speed limit. But as a black man, I still get afraid.
Remember I'm still pulled over for some pizzas.
Yeah, when we got pulled over for the pizzas, he's claiming that there was a tail light out. The tail light wasn't even out when I checked it.
And I had the pizzas stacked looking.
He's
at
got
him.
the pizzas.
I'm just looking at him like, because he was asking us questions. He was like, "I'm taking pizzas to a friend's house." He was like, "Okay, and where does he live?" And I'm just looking at him with the pizzas like,
you know, and it's like an harassment. It's an authoritative thing. And when you question the authority, they get upset. And you end up at the end of a barrel or a baton.
But we have to think about the history of police. And most of them were created to be overseers or be slave catchers. So when you talk about the authority, at one time, black men didn't even have full citizenship, yet alone any kind of right. So to question someone of whiteness, right? It was considered inconceivable for a slave. So then you put these black men in proximity to police officers, and I believe it or not, I think when they assimilate, they don't realize they're assimilating that understanding of they may not be white, but
there's an undertone of racism.
Yes, yeah. I have power and I have authority. Like you said, it's not about power and authority; it's about protecting and serving. Matter of fact, when you look at the UK, they don't even use guns.
Yeah, you know, like America is one of the few countries where we use guns to enforce our laws, but it's because we allow guns to permeate so many parts of our society and people abuse the Second Amendment. So that way they can say, well, I got the right to bear arms. Not understanding that the right to bear arms is because at the time we were still a colony to England. So when we made our Bill of Rights and we talked about the right to bear arms, it was saying that we would have a militia or an organized military to protect the colonies, not from each other, not to run around here like it's the Wild Wild West. It was so that we could protect ourselves from British tyranny. So if they came over here, the redcoats, trying to enforce their will of taxes without representation and all of that, using guns, it was saying, listen, here's documentation that we're going to set it up to where we have protection with weapons. And that organization was the National Guard. It became the U.S. Army. Yeah. So when individuals are talking about, I need guns, Second Amendment, you don't understand the Second Amendment. And I would challenge anybody to go head up with me on that conversation. because I'm ready with all the smoke.
It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. And then to make matters worse, all these black men were sizable guys. Tyree Nichols was 6'3", but only 145 pounds because he suffered from Crohn's disease. So he was already a weak man. So there's even more reason to understand his fear naturally, because something simple as pepper spraying him and detaining him, he was like, his life was in danger the second they started roughhousing him. Yeah. And if I know that I'm somebody that suffers from a disease, or I have some type of immune deficiency, and you doing something, I would be deathly afraid, because just the simple nature of how they handled him could have killed him. But then you go on to beat him for 3 minutes. I don't think people realize how long 3 minutes is. Professional fighters go into the ring for 3 minutes. And they have to train for years to survive in the ring with combat at 3 minutes. The only fighting that goes longer than 3 minutes in professional fighting that I'm aware of is MMA. That's 5 minutes. But then they only go 5 rounds. Because 3 to 5 minutes is a long time to exert energy fighting or combativeness against another person. And he's getting jumped. A frail 145 pound 6'3" guy. That means he's slim. He's skinny. And then you got these tactically trained officers welling on you, beating you with a baton.
Their life is ruined.
Their life is ruined because they allowed the ego that came with the position to allow them to harm people. And they have this thing called qualified immunity. Now, I know a lot of people are, applauding Memphis for what they did. And it's good. Like, it's a good thing that the judgments came down fast. I got to state the obvious, though. I wish these judgments would come down fast like this when the cops are any color. So when they're Hispanic and look inherently white, when they're white, when they're anything else, I want to see the law come down and check these people immediately. We don't always see that, though. Now, I always see black men have to answer to their crimes. And these black men definitely deserve the answer to their crimes. They get no passes because they're black. I just want to see the law exhibited like that in all cases.
You mean like Big Meech versus the mob?
Big Meech versus the mob, R. Kelly versus rapists like him versus all the other, the white rape. You get what I'm saying? Like when you look at how these cases and how the judgments are nulled out. Like even when people talk about black on black crime, it's not a thing. You know why it's not a thing? Because when Ray kills Tyreek, Ray gonna go to jail. We seen First 48. We know what happened. He gonna go to jail. 70% of murders actually do get solved in America.
They always say, well, murders happen where you're in close proximity.
Yeah.
But I think we always say all the time, and it's hard to tell someone who's food insecure, financially insecure, not to kill someone who looks like them. But I always say when it comes to our neighborhood, it's amazing how when we go elsewhere, we can dress up, we can put our trash in the trash can, we can be respectful and control ourselves, but then we back in our neighborhood is we doing whatever we want to do.
Yeah, we have to have respect and pride in what's our own, and we don't do that enough. Something else, the qualified immunity thing. So let's talk about that real quick. And let me break down what qualified immunity is. Even as I'm reading the definitions of this stuff, you guys are going to be like, yeah, that don't sound right to me. So qualified immunity is a court-created rule that limits victims of police violence and misconduct from holding officers accountable when they violate a person's constitutional rights. That's crazy. To take it a step further, qualified immunity shields police officer misconduct. A Reuters investigation, if you guys don't know Reuters does a bunch of research. They pull analytics for various things. They found that qualified immunity under the careful stewardship of the Supreme Court is making it easier for officers to kill or injure civilians with impunity. The doctrine provides that a police officer cannot be put on trial for unlawful conduct, including the use of excessive or deadly force, unless the person suing proves that 1. The evidence shows the conduct was unlawful, and 2. The officers should have known they were violating clearly established law because a prior court case had already deemed similar police actions to be illegal. Now, this is the caveat that really trips you out. Even if a person can demonstrate that the police officer acted unlawfully, the officer will not be liable unless both prongs have been satisfied. The second requirement provides an especially powerful shield for officers because courts often require a nearly identical case to use a clearly established precedent. So this is why this is why the judicial system and the law matters. This goes back to voting. It's one thing to vote for president, but we're looking at local elections. Who are going to be your circuit court judges? When we're looking at who's going to be put in place to judge with these things, that's why they matter. Because when they need to find a prior precedent, if it doesn't exist, if no one ever sued before, if they can't get an almost exact case, these officers are normally not going to be tried appropriately. And this is how so many people, or shouldn't say people, but so many officers get away with this brutality. And when we don't understand the law, we don't understand how we fight this kind of brutality. We don't understand how to fight this injustice. These are the things that lead up to it. So when people say, oh, voting, that's a scam, it don't work. Oh, it definitely works. You may not believe in your federal voting for your president, but trust me, when you don't elect to have the right person on the bench, when you don't shake these people's hands, when you don't ask them tough questions, how do you feel about police brutality? How do you feel about somebody's constitutional rights being violated? This is why we can't go further. And when you guys say you don't care about president, keep in mind this. Right now, we have a 6-3 conservative court. These current Supreme Court justices are not likely to say, let's change qualified immunity for the United States. Because they've already aligned themselves to a Republican agenda that supports the power that the police currently have. So when we don't understand the makeup of our society, this is why we have to deal with the crap that we deal with. And this is why we keep on having conversations about another young man getting beat up by the cops.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this since, it's been going on forever. But the high profile cases, starting with Trayvon Martin, that's back when Obama was president, towards the beginning of his candidacy.
2012, maybe?
Yeah, 2012. A whole decade and some change has passed. And we're having the same conversation. Speaking of violence, already this year, we've had more mass shootings than days for the year 2023. A mass shooting is constituted as 3 or more deaths from one shooting.
Oh, I wasn't aware.
Yep, we've had more mass shootings than we've had days so far this year. It is not off to a good start, folks. It is not off to a good start. They keep on telling us to vote for our lives, but I don't see our lives improving.
Right.
And this is where we have to figure out how we combat this. One last thing about qualified immunity, some stats I want to throw out there for you guys. Americans were first empowered to challenge police misconduct in 1871 when Congress passed a law allowing lawsuits against state and local authorities who refused to protect African Americans from or even participated in racial terror lynchings and other acts, racial violence groups by like the Ku Klux Klan. In 1967, the Supreme Court limited the right by announcing a legal doctrine called qualified immunity, ostensibly to protect government employees from frivolous lawsuits. Now, keep in mind what's going on in 1967, right? This is during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. So when we talk about legislation that's written for us, the 1968 Civil Rights Act gets passed, but then don't forget that a year before this was created. And so instead, the Supreme Court precedent has effectively created a justice, the way Justice Sonia Sotomayor put it, an absolute shield against accountability for police officers accused of excessive force. And if y'all want to know how do we change this, the answer is actually very simple. The Supreme Court has the authority to end the doctrine of qualified immunity that it created. Came from them. And at the time, we were in a situation where we had more conservative Supreme Court justices than we had liberal thinking Supreme Court justices. So the law was created during a liberal time of 1871, where they said, mind you, this is on the heels of slaves being freed and all of that. This is during Reconstruction, probably one of the best times for black people in America. But then Jim Crow America destroyed what we built in Reconstruction, right? But during that time, they said, hey, we need to find a way to keep these people who basically got their start in slave catching from harassing African Americans. So using the law, they said, hey, let's do this to fight that. But then for about 80 so years, or almost 100 years, almost exactly, in a more racial time period, they say, you know what? Nah, we want to shield our officers from harassing black people, for sicking dogs on them, from using water hoses to spray them down the street. So they shielded them with the law. See, every time something happens in this country, you got to understand what laws have created this environment where this can continually happen.
Right.
It's all in the law. And when we understand the law and understand what our place is in the law, we can then therefore change the law. Something else I want to bring up, because I thought it was important tonight.
Okay.
You hear a lot of people, and I said this earlier, you hear a lot of people always saying, oh, well, we have, as officers, we have to be like this. You don't understand the kind of scumbags we come across daily. Okay, let's talk about the kind of scumbags in America and see if the numbers make sense to you. About 0.7, not 7%, 0.7% of the United States is currently in a federal or state prison or a local jail. If you want to kind of like really break this number down, right? The United States currently is incarcerating around 698 people per 100,000 people. All right. If you look at how many adults are incarcerated, it's about 0.88%. If you look at about how many working age adults are incarcerated, it's about 1.07%. These are some interesting numbers because they say about 1 out of 3 crimes are reported. So if these people are the result of a reported crime, not necessarily violent, just reported crime, period, that means only about, you can justify and say maybe 2% of the population is committing crimes. So if only 2% of the people you're coming across are likely to commit crime, why are you treating everybody in this authoritative way where you can just have this ego and be a jerk? Because this rationale that, oh, everybody I stop has the potential to shoot and bust at me, that's not true. Because it's not true of society and how most people are operating. Mm-hmm. So that means you're clearly harassing certain people. And the numbers prove we're harassing people. The University of South Carolina put together a study with the data from a 16-year Bureau of Labor Statistics to survey U.S. crime statistics. The research showed that almost half of black American males, 49%, were arrested at least once before their 23rd birthday. Isn't that crazy, Katrina?
It is.
That means almost half of the black men you come across, they haven't even had a chance to finish college yet. By their 23rd birthday, almost 49% have been arrested. Maybe not convicted of a crime, but at some point, somebody put cuffs on your hands. As a young black man from Tennessee, I'm telling you from personal experience, this is very true. They are quick to put them cuffs on you. They will do it in a heartbeat for a simple traffic stop.
I just think that it just shows that racism is inherently a part of the American culture. Mm-hmm. And we try to sweep it under the rug, but the reality is there's so much evidence showing otherwise.
Another stat, because I'm gonna knock a lot of these out too. This is from a World Population Review. Property crime is the most common type of crime.
Okay.
It includes theft, robbery, car and vehicle theft, etc. It is most common in countries like Trinidad and Tobago, El Salvador, and Guyana, where terrorists are robbed and assaulted. When you look at America, most of these crimes don't result in assault. Mm-hmm. Most of these crimes are just they steal from you, they take something that is not theirs, but the chances of being assaulted during one of these crimes in America is actually kind of low, right? There's another stat that said, according to the analysis by the Marshals Project, law enforcement was able to solve 1,200 more murders than previous years. This signifies a 14% increase in clearance rate. On the downside, there was a 30% increase in murders in 2020. Basically, 70% of all homicides are solved. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about where there's a whole lot of people running around there that get away with murder, where most of the murders are being solved. And they have ongoing research into those. And the people who are typically getting away with these crimes and these murders, they're not the low-level crimes we hear about. These are normally severe organized crime, like the mafia, where the FBI has to survey them for like 7 to 9 years to get the case, to actually crack the case, and then have a RICO charge where they can tie all the murders to somebody higher in the hierarchy, right? So just that's a myth that the world is like so dangerous. Another one, we see that race plays a role in wrongful convictions. According to the University of California, Irvine, African American prisoners convicted of murder are 50% more likely to be innocent than other convicted murderers. The number is even higher if these people are convicted of killing white victims. Did you not catch that? 50% are more likely to be innocent than other convicted murderers. And if the number is even higher if they're convicted of killing a white person. So we've seen countless times on the news where this alleged situation where a black man has done harm to a white victim, and then you hear the details of the case. I'm like, that don't even make sense. How can he possibly be guilty? The DNA, because he's black. Even at the start of the Anti-Defamation League.
But the problem is, and something I want to talk about before we wrap up, is when we talk about the legal system, we have black cops, we don't see a change. We have black judges, we don't see a change. We have black lawyers, we don't see a change. If you're going to be a part of the legal system, you have to infiltrate it, understanding that, yes, you're going to do what calls for the law. You're going to do what's right. But if you see something that doesn't seem right and it's going to cause harm to another black person, you need to be able to change the current system.
But what they found, and shout out to Rashawn Ray, good brother, man of God, alpha man. He is a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution and also leads the sociology department at the University of Maryland. He's actually been on the Nitty Gritty show before. I need to have that brother back soon. But he does a lot of work around police brutality. Like the focus of his work, sociology, is looking at these sociology concepts when dealing with policing and all that. He's done stuff with AR, using VR to help test the inherent bias of cops, even in the PG County Police Department. Dope brother. If y'all don't know him, look up Rashawn Ray. He's been on countless publications, from Roland Martin to various shows on MSNBC, you name it. Very smart brother. But he brought up the fact that when they do studies on police officers, they found that the inherent bias doesn't change based off race.
Right.
That most people, as you're talking about, when they join the police force, they assimilate to the values of racism and bias towards black people. The fact that an A1 male, when they say, hey, I have an A1 male, that means a black man. Now that's interesting because black people only make up about 13% of the U.S. population, right? So why would a black male be A1? A1 should be the larger population. We should be a secondary male on the list. We should be like B2 or A2 or B1 or something like that. But somehow when it comes to a suspect, black people are described as A1. I have an A1 male. That's interesting.
Yeah.
When we have more white people automatically by population. Why are we your first start towards a suspect? And that in itself is proof of the inherent bias in police. The fact that for a long time they used black targets.
Same with being a lawyer and same with being a judge. I would assume probably a very similar thing. You're just assimilating existing versus changing the narrative and the system. Another
source from University of California, Irvine. Criminal justice statistics show that African American males serving time for sexual assault are up to 3.5 times more likely to be innocent than white males convicted of the same crime. This is interesting. I just said this earlier. I'm going to bring this back up again. When you look at, and shout out to Brent, he said it's A1 because that is the A1 target for arrest. Amen to that. And there's a correlation of numbers when it comes to prison. But when you look at the beginning of the Anti-Defamation League, now they will tell you that they created it because a man was pulled out of jail and he was lynched. And they're right. A man was pulled out of jail and lynched. But the gentleman happened to be Jewish. But he was convicted of raping a young white girl. He tried to get away with it by saying a black man. He tried to say that 2 black men did it. Because, we're talking like 1914.
Right.
Back then, the easiest way to get out of crimes, and to this day they do this, the easiest way to get away with something, just say, hey, the black man did it. Right? And we see all types of white people doing it. White is white at the end of the day. Right? So, in that situation, he was trying to put his rape onto 2 innocent black men. And I'm not agreeing with the lynching of him, but he was guilty. The court found him guilty, even in that racist environment where he tried to easily say, no, it was those black guys. They still said, no, you're wrong. And they was going to convict him. But then, unfortunately, racism allowed him, or in a hyper-violent environment that we lived in, they went into the jail, pulled him out, and they lynched him. He wasn't supposed to be lynched. He was supposed to go to court. He was found guilty, sentenced him, let him go to jail. They weren't supposed to lynch that man for that. But the ADL is built off of that case. Interesting. I'm just throwing that food out there for y'all. Been a lot of conversations about certain groups in America. I ain't saying anything except the facts. Like I said, I don't make the news. I'm just reporting it. All right? So that's something I need to throw out there. He had made a good point. Oh, and when we look at targeting of African American males, this is important because we see that there's been policies created to target the African American family, to separate. Now, it's interesting. When you look at Section 8 housing, you can be in a relationship with a male and live in Section 8 housing. But for some reason, when you live in government projects, the man can't live with said wife, girlfriend, baby mama, whatever the situation is. So what happens is people that qualify for Section 8, they just happen to more so be white, the stats is out there, than black people. So now automatically black women who have children by themselves, and if they're looking for support because black men are either being targeted or can't be employed at the same rate, right? Matter of fact, they show that 27% of unemployed males have prior conviction rates. Now think about, or prior arrest. So think about it. If almost half of black men are being arrested at 23, but then people are running around saying, oh, those black men are some bums. They don't be having no jobs. Well, we need to consider these arrest rates before they even hit 23.
Yeah.
So when you wonder why so many men, black men especially, are not working or unemployed, you have to consider the fact that, man, a fourth of them is due to their arrest record.
Their background, yeah.
But we see that a lot of the arrests are BS or bias or prejudice driven. So before sisters, because I know sisters be like, these brothers need to get their stuff together. Well, if y'all really love black people, that means black men too, you need to understand the law and how do we protect our young black men so that way they can be working black men, suitable fathers for marriage.
Well, I think we have to,
because it's all connected.
I think we have to be more intentional with how we're parenting. So that way your kids is not trying to be alert or easily impressed by the local drug dealer or doing dumb stuff. I mean, I know kids are kids, but sometimes wisdom is not only from experience or through prayer, but through being taught. Yeah, and we have to be intentional about the teaching, and that's why when you have people like Governor DeSantis trying to take literally African American studies, I mean the basic stuff. This is not critical race theory stuff. We're talking about just basic MLK, Rosa Parks. I mean, just the basic stuff that are facts of American history. Trying to remove that, to try to sweep it under the rug. No, let's talk about it. And as we talk about it, let's pass the law for reparations. Yeah. Run me my check. Last stat I'm going to bring up is, according to research carried out by the University of Georgia, around 15% of American males have served time in the U.S. Once again, my sisters, I know a lot of women are running around talking about, I need a high value man. I need a brother that's 6 foot tall, makes $100,000 a year, no kids. You have a more likely chance of finding a brother who's served time in jail than you do that individual. Because the individual, matter of fact, that's sad though. That is really sad. Less than 8% of men make over 6 figures. That means the number is almost double for black men to have served jail than they would make 6 figures. That's sad. And that's why it's hard out here. I get it. But these are the facts. I can say what makes you feel good. I could sugarcoat it and put a spin onto it, but that won't change the reality of what we're living in. Yeah.
And this is the hard truth. So at the end of the day, we want to fix this, right? We always leave y'all with a pathway. Start paying attention to your local judges, your circuit court judges, and petition your congressman and your senator to address the Supreme Court about qualified immunity, right? Black people, any matter of fact, this ain't just for black people. This is for white people, black people, Spanish people, whoever you are. When you become a police officer, consider it's your job to protect and serve. And think about the next time you pull somebody over who's trying to cooperate, think about if that was your son, if that's your daughter. And then think about your own life. And the other thing, we need to start going to lawmakers and saying at the local level, state level, and the federal level, when these things happen and they win a judgment, the money don't need to come from community funds. The money needs to come from the police pension plan or make it come from the FOP, the Fraternity of Police. If the money from these lawsuits came from the Fraternity of Police or they came from the police department budget, I bet you people think twice about beating some young man. I bet you they wouldn't make a comment like, let's go beat his ass. Oh, they wouldn't say that no more because they'd be like, no, bro, don't beat him down. Yeah, because you're going to mess up my pension.
It impacts them.
Yeah, make sure there's consequence for the action. That's what we need to fight for. Any final thoughts? No, we good? Girl, you getting tired of me? You getting tired of me?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, y'all, if y'all don't know, Katrina shuts down at 8:30. That's like her bedtime. You know what I'm saying? 8:30, them eyes get drowsy. We know not even try to watch a movie after 8:30 because at 8:30 she ready to go to sleep. Me, I could be up till 1 o'clock in the morning easily, no problem. I'm a night owl.
But I'm also up earlier than you most of the
You're like an early bird too. I mean, you'll wake up ready just to like start your day. Like, I gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do this. Just ready to write down tasks and it's like I just knock out tasks for the day. No. I tell you, you go to the gym ready to work. I go into the gym dragging y'all. I need like a little boost of little energy shot so I can get moving. That's why I have to hit that what's the little thing I get on all the time? The elliptical. Yeah, I have to hit that elliptical first because I can't go straight into the workout. Katrina, she goes straight into that workout. She ready to go. I ain't built that way. You special, boo. You special. Look, I didn't have a whole lot of birthdays to announce today, but there's 3 I want to call out from the month of January. The 3 that matter the most to me, personally, biasly, right? Got to shout out Gabrielle Altar. She turned 9 years old. Where you at, boo-boo? That's my niece. Got to shout out my own daughter, Amira DaCosta. Yes, I have a 17-year-old. A 17-year-old junior in high school. I've earned this gray. This gray is here. All right, and then shout out to my mom and them watching right now. Mamie Altar turned 46 years old with a few years experience. So that stage me Mamie in the comments. Also, you know, we like to celebrate love here. So shout out to Ryan and Sheila Turner, 28 years married. Going strong. If you have a wedding anniversary coming up or birthday, feel free to message the Nitty Gritty Show. We'll be happy to shout out your loved one live on the air. Don't forget you can still buy some swag from Team Locker, www.squadlocker.com. You type in The Nitty Gritty Show. We got all kind of hats and stuff, partnerships with Adidas, Under Armour, Nike, you name it. It's all there. Also, you see right here in the corner, let me make sure I'm doing it right. Yeah, pow, right there. Boom. You can hit us on the Cash App. You know what I'm saying? Throw us a little bit of that. You know, we got to pass the offering plate around. All right? This helps us buy camera equipment, pay for the various softwares we use because they have monthly or annual subscriptions. So please donate. You know, like I said, I'm passing the offering plate around. If you like the stuff we talk about on the Nitty Gritty Show, if you want us to keep on doing it, throw us a little money. And if you want to sponsor the Nitty Gritty Show, feel free to email us at the Nitty Gritty Show 2017 at Gmail, and we can make you a sponsor of the Nitty Gritty Show. And we have all of our things on the back end taken care of. Everything's official. So when you give us that money, we'll make sure you have a receipt. And therefore, especially if you give in your business name, you can write that off if you want to be a sponsor. So if you want to be a business sponsor of the Nitty Gritty Show, it's a write-off benefit to you if you do it. So hit us up. Let us know. Other than that, I'm your boy, Jay DaCosta.
I'm your girl, Katniss.
And together we are
The
Nitty Gritty Show. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned. Before we leave, who won that game? Is that game still going on? Does anybody know? Did the Bengals and Chiefs game end? That AFC Championship game? I'm going to look it up real quick. I'm just curious to see if we got the score before we head out. No, it looks like they're still going. Looks like it's tied 13-13. So, all right. So, I guess we'll see. I don't have a dog in that fight. We'll see what happens. I guess we could just go for the Chiefs since Travis is playing there, right? But anyways, we are out of here hitting y'all with the intro. We'll see y'all next week.